Perfect. Hey everybody, it is Kevin and Katina here at Classic. Thanks for joining us today. We got a large group so far, and I know there's some more coming in. So we're almost at 100 of you. So thanks for taking a little bit of time to talk about what we're doing in the virtual exhibit world right now. I know that's the hot topic for everybody, and we got some exciting things to show you on how hopefully we can be a supportive partner to you and ultimately your end clients for their needs for virtual events coming up. One of the things I want to throw out right away, because this question comes up a lot of times when we're presenting, is the difference between the virtual event itself and the virtual exhibit, right? And that, our specialty is kind of like in the physical world. We're going to design and build the exhibit itself. And in this case, we're going to design and build the virtual exhibit in the interactive space, but not the actual event platform. And we'll get to some of those questions that I know that are out there about, well, how does this integrate in with different virtual platforms? And we've got a great answer to that. By comparison to maybe some of what other people have been providing and what we've seen out there. So with that, I'm going to share my screen really quickly. We'll jump in here. There we go. So what I'm showing right now is new, and those of you who have Exhibit Design Search are going to see coming up here very soon, integrated into your own EDSs, are some kit examples that we've put together that will reside in Exhibit Design Search in the near future. Like I said, it's on this particular non-branded site right now, and it will start to roll up into everybody else's site soon. Quick note, try to keep yourselves muted if you can when you come in. But I want to start with one thing one thing first, which is, as events have gone virtual, the large part of this year, since March, we've seen some successes, we've seen some failures, and also some sort of just mediocre down the middle experiences for people. The event platforms seem to be doing pretty well. Good reviews on the keynotes, the sessions, educational sessions, some of the pavilion areas and whatnot that they've converted. The one spot that's been a challenge, though, which is good for all of us in a way, is once you get to the actual expo floor and you experience someone's booth. So I'm just going to click over on a tab here, and I'm going to show you one of the larger shows that went virtual with Semicon. And I don't know how many of those, by the way, I can't see any of you right now, which is totally fine. I can't see by a show of hands, but I don't know how many of you actually attended virtually Semicon. But a few of us did, because we wanted to get a sense for what the event was going to be providing, and then kind of how are we all going to interact and interface with that. It wasn't the best, and I'm not trying to be negative, but it wasn't necessarily the best. What was being given to the exhibitors was essentially a choice of about 5-6 different exhibit designs. You're seeing one of them on my screen right now, and it was flat, two-dimensional, not a whole lot of pizzazz, right? People could just put like one of their core branding colors on there, and then they were able to create links, right, to different areas, or put video in, and that was great. And they had some live chat functions and whatnot. But for those of us who do this daily, all of you on this call, and certainly us here at Classic, it left a lot to be desired from a standpoint of the actual exhibit experience. The ability to actually walk in and feel like you're kind of in the space, but had some of the basic tools, which was good. So this is where we're seeing a lot of the events. I'm getting a lot of feedback, most recently from small and medium-sized events that have gone virtual, and it's kind of the same thing. It's not this exact same thing, but it's kind of the same thing, a real sort of flat presentation. So that keeping tucked into the back of your mind as we sort of press forward and show you what we're doing in the Classic world on behalf of you all. So you'll see we've added 3 virtual kits to EDS, and I'm going to dive into each one of them. The first one I'm going to dive into, some of you saw if you were attended the Together Again Expo virtually, that we, some of us attended physically, but we sponsored the Women in Exhibition booth, which turned out beautiful. It actually ended up being the only real virtual exhibit that was on the floor. But that'll be the first one I want to take you into, and Katina will kind of walk us through. I'll navigate, and she'll kind of talk us through some of the options that are available. But it's a great example of even in an inline space where you can have an impactful experience. It doesn't always have to be an island exhibit. So without further ado, I am going to click over and hop into this exhibit, Katina.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Okay. You can click the no. We don't need the music to start playing with this tour. So this is a 10 by 20 space, as you can see, even with the restrictions of gravity and size and all those things sort of being lifted out of with the advent of virtual exhibits. A lot of people are still sticking to pretty regular dimensions, show regulations. I think there's a couple of great things about that. Number one, it's familiar, it feels comfortable, and I think all of us kind of want that familiarity right now. We're missing that in-person exhibit, but here's something that's very realistic that you would actually see in a show hall. But the great thing is Women in Exhibitions is a nonprofit. They don't have a large budget, but we were able to create this really premium space for them. It's a custom, really high-end looking space, even though it's a 10 by 20, it's not large. But it fit their needs really well also. So if you have a client who has maybe they don't have a big budget, or maybe they just have a few things that they really want to highlight for an online show or an online presence and an online interactive, then this is a great option, because as you can see here, there's different buttons that call out different things. For instance, you walk up to the reception counter. The reception counter itself is a link to the official Women in Exhibition survey, which is their lead capture, their way of gathering information about the people in their group and what communication preferences women in the group have. So that's a link that goes directly there. You can see it pops up inside the window, so you're not losing people to a new tab and they're off running to off across the internet and they never get back to the virtual exhibit. It pops up within. If you wanted to hear the Women in Exhibitions mission statement, you can click on the button on the receptionist.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I
don't know if we're going to hear it through here. Sometimes they
experience. Women in Exhibitions is dedicated to empowering women to reach their full potential in the exhibit and event industry. We believe that women are the creative and social force.
You have to listen to the whole thing.
So one of the other things I wanted to point out on this front was, the placement of this QR tag, that will actually work. So those can also be placed in different areas where people can just scan their phone over there and have a QR tag take them somewhere else. So.
And it pulls them right up. I mean, in this case, it pulled right up to the same exact link that you get by clicking, but people like to do things different ways. So it's nice to have a little bit of redundancy in there. So yes, you can have an audio file with maybe the president of the company, or just a nice person with a soothing voice describing something about the exhibit, directing people maybe how you want them to move through the exhibit. There's a sign up, as you can see over in the meeting, on the little meeting table, to sign up for the Zoom calls that we do with the Women in Exhibitions group. There is, again, it's a box that pops up that you can close, and you'll get right back to this. And it doesn't take you off into another tab. If you look over to the right, I'm just trying to see all the links that we have here. If you look to the right, we have the sofa area, and that is a link that can take you to sign up for our LinkedIn group. Again, Women in Exhibition, it's not fully developed. They don't even have a website. So this is kind of the one place that they have that kind of brings everything together that they actually have to offer. They have live events. So on the little video screen in the back, or the large video screen rather, there's some live event footage. You can have video incorporated in a number of ways into these virtual events. So if you want to move into the space, in this particular virtual, we have an arrow. So you click on the arrow, it takes you into the center of the space. You can see now on the video, rather than having a click button, it just starts playing automatically. So there's just different options. You know, if you want the video to start playing automatically, that's a cool thing, a cool feature you can have, or you can have it where, you know, someone has to click on link in order to open up that. And if you do click on it, it should have the sound with it as well, which I don't think we heard on the last one.
I have the audio turned off.
Oh, you have the audio. Okay, perfect. So I have it playing. When you first click on this, it's playing, but it's not overriding the sound. This booth actually has a soundtrack of just really calm music in the background. You click on the video, that pops up and the sound from the video comes along, and it's a little more energetic, you know, live event, hey, we're all here, look at this. So there's some redundancy with, you still see some of the links to join our LinkedIn group link, but then we also have a section here where you can open up some brochures or download some brochures for a co-coaching program for the women in exhibitions. I think you clicked on the download link, which does open in a new tab, but the view link opens within the window. And then, and as you can see, there's just a few buttons along the right side, the menu side. There's so many different things you can add there. You can add, you've got the mute button, you've got the floor plan, which is a navigational tool. You've got a little email icon, which pops up an email window for you where you're going to email the client directly. And there's the button on top is just the maximize, like it would maximize on Kevin's screen or your screen if you're viewing this. So this one is a pretty simple exhibit. You know, there's really just a few links, but they're really important. And the way that they're laid out is key because for instance, when you think about meeting, it has sort of this automatic, you know, connotation of tables and a chair, but now you're actually meeting virtually. So the sign up link at that space is for Zoom meetings, but there's a lot of sort of suggestive and just sort of automatic cues that we have by looking at these different spaces. You know, if you walk up to the reception, you expect to hear a greeting, you expect to have some initial information or a lead capture. So the way you organize things in this booth is very much the way you would organize things in a real live event space or exhibit. And those type of cues are really key to helping people kind of enjoy the experience and feel comfortable and navigate it.
And one of the things, you know, that Katina talked, you'll see this in some of the other examples, is this can be, you know, an outside Zoom setup like it is here, kind of listing when they have their typical meetings, but it could also be very show specific where you've got times where people can sign up for meetings at the booth, so to speak, or maybe a presentation that somebody's going to be giving live on Zoom, or it could be pre-recorded, where people can sign up to attend for those. So everything that you see on here, what's so great about this is you're not just locked into only having a survey or only having these could be, someone may just want all PDFs to download, for example, and that would be fine as well. And we can, you know, on the video screens, those can be PowerPoint presentations, Zoom meetings, or video content. So keep that in mind as we go through this, that it's just, the guardrails are sort of off, but what I love about what Katina and her team has done with all of these is, at least from a design perspective, they've still maintained sort of the regular norms that we would experience on the trade show floor. And I think that's super important when you consider that as we maybe make our way out of this, right, or down the road, whether it's in 6 months, 9 months, or a year and a half, this will become a great sales tool, not just to have as a part of your exhibit, but think about somebody who's utilized this for, you know, 4, 5, 6, 25 events over the course of the next several months. They may want to actually buy this exhibit, and so that's why I think it's important that we stay within those sort of standard design norms, so that if somebody does want to buy this down the road, it's something that they can buy.
Right. And what I've spoken about with multiple clients is that you want to have continuity between your visual experience. You want to have, even if the exhibit is not exactly the same, you want to have obviously your same logo, your same colors, and the same type of textures that you would normally use, because your brand is probably, for most people, most clients, already very developed. And so you want to have, you know, for instance, down the road, if we have the live shows open and you still have the virtual component, you have perhaps a booth at the live show that people are going into and experiencing. People who can't make it for still some reason, they can go to the virtual event now. They're having a very similar experience to the people who are at the live show, because the booth is so similar and in look and feel and experience.
All right, so let's move on to our next booth, which is going to be an island. Let's go into this one actually first.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice a little bit different start. I'll let Katina take you through that.
This is a 20 by 20 rather space. And again, it sort of scaled up the number of links and the number of options for interactive things within the booth space that you can do based on the size expansion. It has another variety of links. We wanted to really try and show how many different things you can do inside these spaces. So you can see here, it had an animated fly-through at the beginning, one time around the booth, and then it has several hot links. I think there's about 5 total hot spots throughout this booth. So that means there's 5 different views that you can pan around and look at the different things here. We're just arriving at the reception counter. You can see there's a link there to click for a live chat. And that would be something, if you are using this for a show, you know, that's under a certain limited time period, you would connect that with your services back at the office, so that as people are checking in to do the live chat or they want to ask a question, you have someone on hand to answer their questions. I think the most important thing to really keep at top of mind is that these virtual exhibits are still very much with the same intention as a live exhibit. You're looking at getting leads. You're looking at making connections. You're looking at some way to have good lead capture, right? So a couple ways to do that are, you know, when you first entered this, you saw a pop-up window that had information that had to be filled out. You can make it so that, you know, someone can't progress until they filled out some information, or they can have a survey like the Women in Exhibitions booth did. It's a lead capture survey. You can have the live chat, so, you know, you can answer people's questions in real time. Again, we just got into, it looks like you were in the meeting space, Kevin. Mm-hmm. Back over at where all the people are sitting. Yeah. So at this meeting space, interact is a video that you can watch. So there's a presentation there. These 2 islands that we created for examples were not for real clients. They were really just for examples to show you the capabilities. So it doesn't have quite as specific of links as the Women in Exhibitions booth did. There's a lot that could happen here. You can schedule live meetings, you can schedule meetings at a later date, you can have presentations on the video. I mean, there's quite a long list of what you can do here. If you want to move around, Kevin, to the hotspot at the back, you can see the back of the booth. There's a clickable link just on the back of the booth that takes, I think, to the website. And then we can move into the workstation view. So there's 3 workstations. We've put 3 different interactives on those TVs. If you click, you can see real quick. If you can scroll in and read those reviews, you can go to their page where you can actually purchase, you know, buy some of their product. There's a way to join their VIP club. So we put specific different experiences on these different workstations. Navigate back to the front of the booth. If you click through some of the icons on the right-hand side under the menu.
One quick question. Yes. One quick thing, Katina. Keep in mind that this is a great way of getting information to people quickly, but these could also be one-on-one areas for meetings. So, and I know I'm going to repeat myself a lot when I say this, when I say, just keep in mind, you're not fixed to what is here within each one of these specific hotspots that's shown, but these could actually be spaces where you would go and have a one-on-one with somebody, or a demo, another one-on-one here with a demo on something else, or so. It's very versatile, and you can kind of use it for whatever the client's needs are. The other thing I want to point out really quick on this one is I love what the design team did with this and how they created these hotspots, because if you notice, by going into the one, you have access to all three. You could make those three individual hotspots. Sometimes in certain designs, it gets a little cluttered and you've got too much going on there. But they did a great way of picking a spot in the center of the booth that would give you access to three unique experiences. So that was well done.
If you could click on that floor plan icon, I think you might have your, oh yeah, there, click. Nope, that's the full screen. The one right above it, it looks like a little floor plan in the orange icon.
There you go.
Yeah, okay, so now you see the floor plan pop up. This was in the Women in Exhibitions booth as well, although not as necessary in a booth that only has two views that you are navigating between. This one actually is more helpful, because if you are, on booth and you just want to hop up to the front, you can click on the little icon. I mean, for instance, there, yeah, Kevin just clicked on the reception icons. Now we're in the reception view. You can click to the back. We can go to the back of the booth again. Just kind of a quick, easy way to navigate through the space. It's helpful if it was a really large space and someone was getting lost, or they're like, hey, how do I get back to that spot? But I think what you can see here is a contrast between the 10 by 20 booth and the 20 by 20 booth. You have space for maybe a larger number of interactions and experiences. So that is kind of a guidepost. If you have a client and you have to ask them how much information they want to be sharing at the show. They maybe don't want to share every single thing, about their company, especially if they've been around a long time or have a lot to offer. They might not want to have every single thing available in their exhibit, but they're going to have specific things. Why do they go to a certain show in the first place? Well, maybe it's because of a key market that they like to talk to about a specific product line they have. So in that case, you're going to tailor these interactives around what they're trying to get across, the points they want to make to anyone who would be coming in to visit and experience this space.
And after, I'm going to dovetail on that and take it as an opportunity to say, one of the things that we're experiencing a lot of going through this with distributor partners and their end clients is what Katina just said. You can tailor it to the message that folks that they want to convey at a specific event. That's one aspect, but what's becoming even a larger opportunity for people, what we're finding so far is, yeah, this is going to be fantastic for my event, and I can really target this group that's going to be at this event, but I can actually use this away from the event floor. I can actually now use this for maybe channel partner meetings that I have, or maybe we're doing a large presentation to a large, grocery store chain or something. We can utilize this now as a marketing tool and a presentation tool for a lot of things that are off the trade show floor. So we've got one example that some of you, I know are on this call, I've done some one-on-ones with, that is a great example of that. They designed for a specific set of shows, and I think they've used it for one or maybe two of those events so far. But the lion's share of what they've used it for is meetings, whether it's shareholder meetings, whether it's internal meetings, or it's pitches out to specific industries that maybe they're trying to get their services into. It becomes a real valuable piece that end clients can use, not just for their trade show floors. Anything else, Katina, on this one before I jump to the next?
No, let's go to the next one.
You got it. All right. Veggie noodle. Notice how the difference is, this beginning can look different on every single one as well. And these all had kind of a three unique different sort of splash pages at the beginning before the fly.
Right. This booth is a 20 by 30, so it's a little bit larger, and it has, like I mentioned before, consequently more experiences happening within. We also did a 2-time around animated fly through. It's a little choppy, I think, because of, well, at least on my screen it is, because of the internet connection. But when you view it directly from our exhibit design search, it will be nice and smooth so long as you have a good solid connection to the internet. Okay, so first again here you have the pop-up window where you can have lead capture, and it has some navigational instructions at the bottom. This is just this is not how it has to be. This is how we've done it for a client in the past that was really successful, so we sort of imitated that part. But you end the fly through at this view. Now it pops up and you have this navigatable image, this navigatable view. And the only, the first place you're probably going to go is sort of an automatic, just psychological thing. You're probably going to go up to the reception counter. See, Kevin's already got his little mouse on the pointer. So you have, yep, you're able to talk to the receptionist. There's a live chat. There is, if it pops up, I don't know, did you click the link? Okay. Yep. Okay, cool. So yes, you can pop up the video. So if the sound was on, again, you would have the music from the video playing. Similar situation to women in exhibitions. You have the background music. Well, actually,
there you go. Sorry.
More exciting music for the video. The background music is calmer. So you know, throughout the experience, it's a little bit more of just a calming auditory experience. The chat this time, instead of being a verbal greeting, is another live chat box, and just options. Navigate here, whichever link you want to go to, Kevin. We can go to the back of the tower. In this one, the main experience is this video. So when that pops up, the music on the video is already playing. You can click it if you, or actually, I think if you want to pause it. So I showed another option where it just pauses or stops or starts. Doesn't have to click open to a big window. I mean, literally, we can fine tune all the details, all the things that that you can do with these different types of links. If you know, how do you want the video to play? When do you want the video to play? When do you want it to start, stop, pause, etc.? It's all controllable.
PowerPoint presentation would fit well there as well.
Right. Right. So, and this is the meeting area, and here the main interactive is scheduling a meeting. Again, I'm using the visual cue of the meeting space to have people think like, oh, I want to schedule, you know, they see people meeting. It's sort of an automatic thing. You just know that, oh, I'm going to go there. I'm going to be able to schedule a meeting or talk to someone. So that is just a really simple visual cue. And then you are able to have some sort of a link here where you can get to whatever sort of meeting software the client has that they want to use.
Yeah, this again, whether it's Zoom, Teams, you know, WebEx, whatever, but you know, again, it goes without saying, but this could all be customized as well to be, you know, times here, and you know, I want to meet with Bob, or I want to meet with Katina, or I want to meet with Kevin, or Sue, whatever. That can be set up however, and then the links be embedded in there so that you're able to schedule a specific one-on-one time with you know, one of the sales reps or one of the company representatives right there at the event.
Great. Okay. So we're that. You can click over to the front view if you want, or whichever, or you could go to the floor plan. This is a good case for the floor plan. No, that's the full screen. The floor plan looks like a floor plan with a door. Yes.
There we go.
And also these icons are totally customizable. I don't know if you guys noticed, but in this case, they're sort of, you know, a little scribble that looks sort of like the noodles themselves. And it's transparent. Wherever the noodles are knocked out, there's nothing there. But we created some custom icons. You don't have to. You can use really standard icons that are just like a square or a circle with a simple symbol inside. But it's a fun thing to kind of be able to play with. This is the first workstation, and you can see it's about recipes. So the iPad, for example, could open up to a link that has recipes and a searchable recipe link. And then there's also the ability to have a brochure maybe that can be viewable, downloadable. There's lots of options there. And then the next workstation over is about the ingredients that are used. So I think that, iPads, video screens, those lend themselves really well to interactives. If you want to have a game, I'm even talking to one of our partners that provides interactive games and talking about how we can show that on maybe our next example that we create for the exhibit design search gallery. Because I think it's really fun when you have things that people can come in and stay a while and play on and have fun with, that also reinforce the brand, reinforce the client's product, reinforce the client's information that they're trying to get across. So again, this one's different. It's a little bigger. There's a little bit more room for more experiences. There's the monitor on the front and the back of the tower. There's 2 workstations that have been set up as individual experiences, as opposed to in the Jealous Suites booth, we had all 3 on one screen in one view. You have, I don't know if we've showed this yet. If you click over on the upper left-hand side where it says veggie noodle, and that is the logo that sticks with you throughout, whatever view you're on. But you can actually, it's a clickable link. You can make it go to the website. You can make it go to some specific product. You can make it go to a different website. You can make it go, Kim had hers. Kim did the virtual for Jealous Suite. She had it go back to the front view of the virtual so that you could just navigate back to the front by clicking up on the upper left-hand corner. I mean, you literally can link it to whatever you want within this virtual exhibit or outside of this virtual exhibit. This one has the most links under the menu. It's got the floor plan. It's got the mute button. The third button down, it just shuts off hotspot visibility. If those things are bugging you, if they're glitching or if they're like giving you a seizure, turn them off. It's totally easy to turn it on, off and on. You can have this one is just a full screen toggle, so it would open it up to full screen or back down again. The play button would replay the fly through if someone wants to see the fly through again. You can link to social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything. I don't know how to describe how basically you can link to anything.
No, that's exactly it. One of before we get to, I know there'll be some questions, but and also have you, Katina, be able to kind of talk about the process and how it's similar to physical exhibits, and then how it differs from physical exhibits. One of the things I want to mention, because it comes up frequently, more so in the last handful of weeks, is I already mentioned about utilizing off the show in a different way, but also you don't necessarily have to do this with just an exhibit, right? So we've got a few different opportunities that we'll be working on that are going to use actual spaces, whether it's a lobby space or one who's just recently reached out, talked about creating sort of a theater space. Because they want to do a presentation with it. They don't even want it for a show necessarily, but to be able to do a presentation, it doesn't always, again, have to just be an exhibit space as well. I've heard a lot of people describe this as sort of the Wild Wild West, and it kind of is the Wild Wild West, but boy, in such a creative way, which is what I love about it. We're not overly limited with what we can provide for our common end clients. So keep that in mind. Okay, so Katina, kind of talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about how the process works. What's going to seem familiar? What's going to maybe seem not as familiar?
Right. I think there are a lot of these, like you just mentioned. When you have a client who's interested in a virtual exhibit, we're going to want a lot of the same things. What's their current branding? What are their goals for this exhibit? Who is their target audience? What products are they wanting to demonstrate in some way? What are the main messages that need to be gotten across? Now, one thing that's different about virtual exhibits versus real physical exhibits is that with the physical exhibits, there's usually the design is usually more of a flexible process. And then as you get further along, as you start doing the actual physical build, maybe you're honing in on details, maybe your graphics people are finally like getting down to brass tacks and they're finally, sending in the final graphics to be printed. With virtual exhibits, we really need to have pretty much everything nailed down at the very beginning, because the first thing we do before we start putting in all the links and all the interactive stuff is we have to create the visuals that you see. So the graphics really need to be honed in very much at the beginning, and then also the interactive items. For instance, the veggie noodle booth was a kit, and when I sat down to say, okay, I'm going to turn this into a virtual exhibit, what are the experiences going to be? I realized that I wanted to have some specific experiences happening at the two workstation areas. So I didn't have an iPad or a brochure holder on either of those workstations in the kit, but I ended up needing to add those in so that we could have the visuals there that would support the experience that needed to happen there. So that's just an example of a booth that was already mostly created, kind of went in and fit the experiences that we had available to us to this exhibit. I saw a question in the chat. We're going to get to the questions in the chat. I promise, but I saw one in particular that related to, how much time or how long will it take if we wanted to do this. Well, the cool thing is with our kits, and we have quite an extensive kit library with Exhibit Design Search. With the kits, it's going to be, again, like a really good tool. Now, if someone wants to use the Women in Exhibitions booth, the Veggie Noodle booth, or the Jell-O Sweets booth for their interactive, it's going to be a lot faster than it would be for us to take one of our other kits and turn it into a virtual, because we've already got our camera set up in the right spots, and a lot of the links can be copied and pasted and transferred over and just adjusted for whatever needs to be adjusted. But you also can do something really custom, that's not even in Exhibit Design Search. So, and if that's the case, then you're starting from scratch with the design, with everything, with the concept. So that's going to be the longest term turnaround. But yeah, with this, you have to think about what the experiences are going to be, and you need to know that from the beginning. So I, knew with Veggie Noodle, I sat down, I plotted it out. We have these experiences that need to happen. And so I would suggest a lot of people, if you are working with a client who wants a virtual exhibit, I would suggest you do the same. What do you need to have happen in this virtual exhibit? We need the deliverables up front. Do they have brochures to link to something on their website because they think it has all the information that someone needs and they just want to send people right to that specific spot? We need the videos. Do they have videos they want to link? Do they have an audio file that they want to have an audio greeting or some other sort of audio description of one of their products? Whatever those deliverables are, whatever is attached in these links, do they want to have Zoom meetings to sign up for? Well, have them create that Zoom meeting and give us the registration link so that we'll have it to put into the interactive portion, because we're not going to be creating the Zoom links and the website links and those things. Like, obviously those are things that have to come from the client. So you need to know, you just kind of have to have it all plotted out at the very beginning before we even get started. And then a lot of the things that typically you don't need till later, like the graphics and stuff, like final graphics, we do need those once we really start getting going on it.
So Katina, when you're describing that, and I've heard you describe this to other people, that's where it kind of seems similar, to me in the way that, we attack an exhibit design, right? An exhibit design, you may be not working with actual, art right up front, right? But then once we build it, we need that. It's kind of the same way when we get into the virtual space. Once we start going into developing the virtual side of this, that's when we need those sort of assets. And the assets really aren't that different. They're going to be the same sort of video content they would be showing. The biggest difference is maybe those abilities to have the on-site meetings, have the live chat, have the live chat. Those things are different. But
Right.
specifically to that question of turnaround time, a good rule of thumb, and I've talked to some industry friends about this as well as kind of what they're experiencing. It's very similar to what we're experiencing. A good rule of thumb is kind of the same as it is in the physical world. If it's something that's going to take normally, say, 10 to 15 business days to manufacture an exhibit, it's probably going to be similar to come up with the virtual version of that. If it's going to be a 20 business day sort of turnaround time to normally build a bit larger exhibit, it's probably going to be similar on the virtual side. The biggest difference on the virtual side is it's all time at that point. It's gaining client asset, and it's time to do the renderings. The renderings, I know from Katina's experience, has been it is quite a bit more intensive as far as that process goes. The gaining of, and I see someone just put a comment in there as far as the timelines being somewhat unrealistic. And so, Laura, I'm gonna address that specifically. I think you're kind of right, to be honest. I'm telling you how quickly we would be able to do it given all the information. And it really is, again, not that different from the physical side, where we have found ourselves many times, all of us combined, where we've got an exhibit actually built, but we still don't have art files, and we're still waiting on that information from the client. So that is, I think, still going to be the biggest part of the challenge in working with our end clients is helping them to understand what they need to provide, and then sort of holding them at task in order to get that in a timely fashion.
Right. I don't think you don't need to have the super high res printable art files. Like they can be a smaller scale. So if that's what, sometimes holds people up, we don't need them to be like this big printable at 300 DPI. Also, I've been recommending to a lot of people that you keep your graphics in your booth very on point with your brand, very true to your brand and colors, but maybe don't have super specific wording about the year or a certain product or whatnot. Rather put specific information like that into the links, which can then be changed. You can keep this exhibit and we don't have to re-render all the visuals for new graphics because you had the year in your graphic and now you want to change it to 2021 or whatever. Don't put that type of information. Have nice graphics that can be a little bit more stand the test of time, and then do all that intricate informational stuff through the links. There's really a huge capacity to put so much information in with the virtual links.
Mel, I know you're monitoring the chat, and Glenna, any questions at this point that you want to point out that we can answer?
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Mel. I'm actually going to take them in order, Kevin, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Just to be fair to everyone. So the first question is this a standalone platform product, or is it meant to integrate with the conference platform?
No, I'm glad you asked that. That seems to be one of the bugger issues out there, to be kind of honest with you, is there are platforms out there that you've got to be worried about what API that platform is on, so that it plays well with the event API, event platform API. One of the benefits of the route after going through a good vetting process, of the route that we have chosen is the design's all happening in our own design platform that we worked with for years. As far as doing the interactivity portion of it, it allows us to output this as a link. So it becomes a link, just like I showed you going through the tours here of the three. So you're not worried about having to have something that integrates in with another platform. Let me shrink that down into even a smaller answer, which is, if you take what I showed you from Semicon, and I'm going to go flip back there just so I can show you visually. Right here, this happens to be a video. If this was a link to, provided you an area to do a link to your website, this is where you could actually build a link, that your link for your three-dimensional exhibit could be embedded right here. Because here's part of it is, even though it is simple as being able to provide your client with a link, there's going to be some show organizers that I think we need to be honest about this. There's going to be some show organizers that are going to still require that when you buy your 10 by 10 or your 10 by 20 or your 20 by 20, that you're going to get there as part of the package. You're going to get something from them, and it's probably going to be similar to what they did there at Semicon. That shouldn't preclude your client from being able to have a more meaningful 3D virtual experience, and we can provide that link so that they can embed it right into that exhibit. Does that make sense? Does that answer it well, Mo?
Yes. So there's a question about pricing and a question about, does the pricing include a list of bells and whistles? You might want to show, Kevin, one of the kits and the bullets on those kits, and at least gives a kind of summary of some of the bells and whistles, if not all of them.
So here is, for example, the veggie noodles. You've got a link directly to it, of course, and then you've got different views, just like you've seen before in EDS on other kits that we provided. You've got the suggested retail price. Then you've got a description of what's included, right? So this one actually links to an actual kit as well, so you can see what it would cost in the physical space. But then it gives you an idea of everything that's in there. You're going to get a menu with 1 to 7 items, and that's, there's some flexibility in there. Some idea of what those 7 items could be. Don't feel like those are the only 7 you get to choose from. If you want to have 4 web links and a floor plan and one other option, that's fine.
Right, those are just examples.
Exactly. All of these are just examples of what you would get, sort of high point examples of how many things you can get in your menu, how many things you can get in your navigation, how many navigation views you can have. And then those embedded links, or the hotspots that people refer to, you've got up to 12 of them that you can integrate in through this. It's going to include background music, floor plan, with navigational links. So gives you an idea within the kits of what's included and what can be had for that retail price. If I go back by comparison and look at the Jello Sweets one, different pricing, but then as you get down, you're going to see some of the same things that are included, right? Some of the same things that are included, but then we're also going to see a couple less embedded links, but you still have a lot of the same standards that are going to be included into that. So as we add kits, and some of that is going to be organic, it's much the same way that we've added kits throughout our history, which is we work on some unique projects, and then we take elements of those and put them together, and they end up working so well that we make an unbranded version of it that we then create a kit out of. So we've got others that are in development that then we'll be able to convert over and create kit versions of as well as just taking some of our existing kits. That makes sense, and we're going to continue to add to that kit gallery here over time, both through actual work as well as taking some kits and created spec work, if you will, out of it.
All right, here's a great question for Katina. Do all the exhibits use the avatar format, and are the avatars based on real people who are in the exhibit, or are they simply decorative?
Well, they do not have to have the avatars. It can be an exhibit with no people in it if you want. You could still have a floor plan in that case where you are navigating through the different views just by understanding like, oh, that's the front of the exhibit, that's the back. we put the avatars in. It was a big hit with one of our clients. We had one client actually, they wanted to make the face of the receptionist actually look like someone who worked at their company that a lot of people knew. So they wanted kind of that facial recognition. So we actually customized an avatar with that employee's face. But we find it's a little more realistic, you know, with the people. There can be less people, more people. I think, you know, a few well-placed people just kind of, again, give you a little bit more of the idea of what's happening as an interactive in specific areas of the booth. For instance, there's people sitting down, okay, they're having a meeting. There's people looking at these screens, okay, there's something to look at on those screens. You know, it's just a visual cue. But no, if you wanted it to be clean, you know, cut and dry design, it can absolutely be without the people. We have somewhat of a library of 3D people. A project I'm working on right now for a client, they had a really specific request of what they wanted their receptionist to look like and be wearing, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to hit it exactly on the head, but I'm getting as close as I can. I'm, you know, making adjustments as much as I possibly can to get it as close to the requirements that are being requested. So nope, not required.
All right. Now we've got a technical question. Do you have the ability to capture the data points with segmentation on the different areas of the exhibit floor, such as video views by attendees and clicks by each individual per area along with the traffic flow?
So I think one of the exhibits that we've done has had a similar request, and a lot of that tracking information is taking place through JavaScript, and it's being set up and tracked by that client's IT department. I'm not a website designer. I don't know how to create JavaScript files and do tracking and stuff like that. That's definitely not something that I'm going to be setting up. But some of these things have to be sort of joint efforts, just like if you want to have online meetings, well, what platform are you going to use? Create the meetings, give us the link information, and we can make that happen within the virtual exhibit. But we are not going to set up a meeting program for you or your client. You know what I mean? So the tracking stuff, yes, I think that is absolutely trackable. We have a client who has done it, but it required them to have sort of that knowledge and expertise.
Yeah, it was specifically no. Within the platform we've developed, is there tracking to how many times was this hotspot hit or how many times was this brochure downloaded? No, that is not a part of the platform that we're working with and created. But the client that Katina is talking about specifically was able to take tracking technology that they have, or their ability, their knowledge base, to integrate that, and they're also hosting it on their own web server. Therefore, it gives them direct access to be able to do that. And I know that I'm going to jump sort of ahead. I know that's one of the questions people had was as it relates to hosting. So let me take an opportunity to answer that. You really have three options. Can Classic host them on a secure cloud-based server? Absolutely. Will there be a fee for that? Yes, absolutely. And as these kits are now just coming out, we're going to be putting out a price listing for what the hosting services are. It'll be blind, meaning it's not going to be branded for Classic or anything like that, which will be good. And it'll be on a secure cloud-based server. So that's one option. Option two, distributors can certainly host it. We can provide that link so that then if you wanted to provide hosting for your clients on your own subdomain, absolutely can make that link available for you so that you can do that. Or third option is the client may want to host it. Again, totally doable. Once we're done making the experience, we can send that link off and they can plug it into a subdomain on their existing or onto their existing website, kind of however they want. One of the advantages, I would say, to having Classic or one of you, our distributor partners, hosting it, is the clients are going to want to make changes, and these are positive changes, not negative changes. Clients are going to use these once, based on our experience, and all of a sudden be like I said, they're going to think of another way to use this and be like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Can I do this? Yes, you can. So it's going to create some recurring revenue for distributor partners and Classic combined. If we're hosting it and we've got all that, it's obviously a little bit quicker and easier because we've got it right here. Otherwise, we do need to coordinate then once it's done, sending them a new link, making sure that they wipe out the old one. But in either way, the work's going to end up getting done here. So if we are making those, if we do host it internally, we're happy to do it. We're going to make it affordable. I know I've seen some prices out there that made me scratch my head a little bit as far as what it would cost to host per month. But we will have that pricing out for you guys soon, and it will not be very expensive. I think it'll actually give you a decent area, a decent room to even put some margin if you wanted to on the hosting services.
So, Kevin, just to add on a little bit, I believe one of the clients that you're referring to, what they did is they used Google Analytics for their tracking, and because this is a web-based program, that was pretty easy to add the Google Analytics. Obviously, their IT department had to supply that information, but that's one way of tracking it.
Absolutely.
All right. So another question. If a company purchased a VR exhibit from a third party, Classic, for instance, what are the chances that they can't plug in their new VR equipment in a show that went virtual? From what I have heard, if a show goes virtual, the exhibitor needs to purchase a VR platform from the show's VR partner. I know you've kind of answered that. Can you elaborate just a little?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't mean to openly be pushing such a skirting of the issue, but as one of the advantages and one of the reasons why we've focused on developing a platform that allows for the virtual exhibit to be a hosted link. Those that have tried, those show organizers that have tried to box people into only using, say, their platform or their exhibit option, they're not preventing people from putting links to their website. Here's the thing here's where we don't threaten anybody. And I've had some conversations with some folks about this that are trying to fight this battle with their show organizer, which is we're not taking them out of the event. And that's the critical thing. I get it from a show organizer standpoint. What they want to prevent is people clicking out of their event when they're there. So this does not do that. If you've got a link, if you look at the links that are provided on some of these events that have gone live and they've remained open for people to tour through and see the show for, all of those links to websites or to documents, they're all opening right within the platform. So that's been the argument, is this is fine. We're still buying our space from the show organizer, and they may give us this two-dimensional flat view, which is fine, but we want to be able to take people to our more immersive. As long as we don't leave your platform, can you agree to that? And people have been able to get around that argument that way. Because at the end of the day, the question then comes down, so are you going to prevent me from putting a link to my website? As an exhibitor on your show floor, are you going to tell me that we cannot have a link to our homepage? Because if they're going to do, and they're not going to do that. So you can actually have a client can actually then host this directly on their own homepage and be able to create that link in their profile. So I think it's going to be, I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to be a bumpy road ahead, but to all of you, I know some of us have even talked about this, and others within the industry, this has been a conversation of if when you look at what show organizers are providing as an option to exhibitors, unless they were to really step up their game in what they're offering, it's going to be a hard sell to exhibitors long term if they try to prevent them from doing anything other than what they provide.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to skip a couple questions because you guys have already answered them. And this is actually a question for me, and I'll answer it. Someone's wanting to know what's the ETA on the live EDS gallery and pricing. As of 9 this morning, it is all three of those virtual exhibits are on EDS, both the branded EDS, the unbranded EDS, and on Classic sites. So they're already out there and active, and you can use them. Another question. Your deadlines feel tight and somewhat unrealistic given how we all know clients work. I'm curious, how many of these exhibits have you sold and how successful have you been getting the assets up front?
That's still going to be the challenge. That's the question I already answered for Laura earlier. That's always going to remain the challenge is getting those assets. So we can put the timeline on there. I can tell you that one of the larger projects that we worked on, it was, gosh, 6 or 8 weeks, I think, and it continues to go because they continue to make, again, positive changes to it. We've sold a handful of these so far, but we've got a bunch in development. And that kind of speaks to that question, Laura. This is A, it's new, and number two, they do take time. So, and getting the information. I know the one that Katina is working on right now is a great example. It's a prime example of a client that definitely does not speak any of our language at all. And that's okay. We can kind of try to guide them through and help them get there. So it's definitely taking a longer amount of time than normal. But we're all getting there. It's just definitely a new environment for not just the clients, but even us as providers.
Right. I don't think we actually even said anything about deadlines, but for instance, if you came to us and were like, oh my gosh, my client absolutely needs a virtual exhibit and they need it absolutely, 2 weeks from today, my recommendation would be choose one of these example kits that we've already done as the base for your design. We can make some tweaks, but like I said, there's a certain amount of time that goes into setting up the cameras and a lot of the detail that goes in there. And then you have those cameras all set up. Now, if you can get us new branding, if you can get us links, if we can kind of make some quick decisions on what you're going to include, what you're not going to include, we can turn it around. We can definitely turn one of these around within a couple of weeks. If it's one of the kits we've already done and you get us the graphics, you get us the branding, you get us whatever it is, the brochures, the videos, the links that need to go in there, and we have a really clear idea of where those experiences, where those links need to be embedded within the virtual space. If all of that's clearly defined, I know Stacy had put in there, are we going to develop a questionnaire? Yes, probably so. I think that we're heading to that path right now because with the projects that I've already been working on, I've noticed that there are some pretty similar questions that I keep having to ask, and the better prepared you can bring your client to the table to already have that information, the faster we can get these turned around for you.
So there's a question about, are these a purchase or is this a rental, and is there a cost to update the content?
So they're purchased. There's we've toyed around with how can you rent them, but they're ultimately a purchase. As far as updating them, absolutely there's an update, and I think there's really two significantly different types of updates, and they cost significantly different amounts. If somebody's just updating content, as far as what goes into those interactives, those hot links, that's going to cost less. It's going to be based off of an hourly design charge. If they're wanting to, and it kind of goes back to what Katina was talking about before, by maybe focusing more on corporate branding for the overall exhibit, and then if you've got content changes to keep those to a lot of the video and the links and the things that are put in there. Because anytime if you were to rebrand the entire exhibit and say, gosh, this works so well for Division A, now we want to use it for Division B and then Division C, let's redo the graphics for that. One of the longest parts of this process for our creative team is doing the 360-degree renderings. That takes up a ton of rendering time. And so, again, it's all going to be based on an hourly charge. And so that's where that conversation up front as to how to brand it the first time is going to be really, really critical. And it'll be a question that our creative team's going to ask is, are you going to want to use this for multiple parts of your company? And if so, here's some things to think about, and they'll help kind of guide through that so that they can keep those ongoing costs down.
So are the prices in EDS are they able to pass those prices along to their clients at this point?
Absolutely, and it'll be a standard discount that applies. And what I mean by that is there really won't be a difference in discount. If you know, we've for those of you who've done business with us for years, we've had kind of two different discount structures, sort of a baseline 40% discount, and then an additional discount for some of our largest distributors. It'll be our baseline 40% across the board on the virtuals, and part of that is we're going to try to keep these as competitive as possible on the retail side. And you will notice the difference if you went and did a ground up with the design team, start to finish, as opposed to kind of what you're seeing in that kit model. There'll definitely be a difference between those two prices. But yes, discounts apply.
All right. When things get back to normal, face-to-face, in other words, will you be offering any package pricing for physical booth and virtual booth?
I think that's an awesome conversation to have, because number one, I think that virtual is going to be here to stay as a as a join on, as an add-on to someone's exhibit program. And this is not the answer anyone wants to hear, but yeah, we will offer it. But what's it going to look like? It's really going to depend. I mean, if you were building the women in exhibition type exhibit and then you wanted to have a virtual component added to it, that would be easier than on the island side as far as cost goes. What I do think is something for all of us to be considering, though, is how do we engage our clients into if they buy these exhibits moving forward, and what can we go back to and say, hey, you've already got this, we built this for you on the virtual side. Will there be the ability to create some competitive pricing for if I buy the exhibit? And I think there's going to be some opportunities there.
All right. Someone's asking about the graphic sizes for the booth itself. Katina,
Yes,
do you
I
and your
just
team
texted a reply. I put a reply in the chat. Yes, if someone says, "Hey, I want this virtual exhibit, and let me get started on my graphics," yeah, absolutely. Happy to give you the graphic dimensions. We aren't going to need them at full size, like I said. I'll probably tell you what size they are, but for instance, the one we're looking at on Kevin's screen right now, if this light box is 16 feet high by 3 feet wide, I probably am going to just ask for the graphic to be created at maybe 16 inches high by 3 inches wide, 150 DPI or something. I'll give you some dimensions and like the requirements I need, because you're never going to zoom in far enough to need it actually built at 16 feet high by 3 feet wide. But yeah, if someone says, hey, this is the one I want, like my client graphics, happy to send you a list of graphic sizes to create.
So do you guys know if a shopping cart can be included, or is that really something that the IT team of the client needs to integrate into this?
Example, Jealous Sweets, the website of this client of the Jealous Sweets company actually has to go in and purchase things off their website. So that's literally what we did, was we included the link directly to that commerce site that is already built into this client's web.
Yeah, it wouldn't be something, that's what I was thinking. It would be something that you would have built into this platform, no. Let me ask Katina a bit of a leading question here, but it's one that comes up quite frequently, which is, can somebody, let's say somebody looks at a 10 by 20 or a 20 by 20 in Exhibit Design Search, and their client's budget is not maybe where it needs to be, especially in an inline where it's probably easier. And again, this is totally a leading question. Can you take an existing two-dimensional rendering that we do day in and day out for Exhibit Design Search, and can you bring that in and add hotspots to it? So no turning, no going into the exhibit or whatnot, but can you do that to just a typical rendering?
No, I don't believe so. The way that it works, we do have a very specific type of rendering that we need. It's a panoramic rendering. Now, if you have, this is just sort of off topic, but if you have a booth already, I saw a couple people talk about like, hey, we have a booth already. Could we use that 3D file to create a VR experience? Yes, we can take your 3D file, especially if we created it. It's going to be a lot easier because the textures are already going to be mapped and everything. It would be a lot easier if it's something that we created. But if not, if you created it in-house or someone else did and we need to import it and just get it looking right and then turn it into a virtual, yes, we could do that. If you have a physical booth that's already been built and we can set it up and take the type of panoramic photography of it that, you know, just the same as we're creating panoramic renderings of these exhibits, we need panoramic photography. We could totally use that. And then you end up with a different looking experience, a little more photorealistic and but similar navigation to what you've seen here today on our presentation. And did I totally miss your question, Kevin? Did I answer it?
No. So, and the reason I bring that up is because people are asking, and so it is something that currently we can't do with the form that we've created. But I do think that in the near future that we'll have an ability to do that, where you're just doing simple markers on a flat rendering. But we're not there yet. I just get that question every day, and so that's why I bring that up. The other thing I'm going to dovetail off of what Katina was just talking about, which is one of the current opportunities that we're working on is, again, it's a live space. It's going to be the lobby space of a medical facility, and it probably way more impactful, to be quite honest, than even an exhibit is, and for inexpensive cost, can go in and actually have 360-degree photography taken of that lobby space or of that atrium, whatever it might be, and get that photography done. We can help coordinate that from here, help coordinate that in whatever city it's in, and then have that photography done. Those photos coming back to Katina and her team are so valuable because they can utilize those and then have a real space that they can then integrate in all these hotspot and connection spots and so that kind of gets back to if it doesn't always have to be an exhibit. It could be a corporate environment rendered or actually photoed. So there's don't limit yourself to the exhibit floor, number one, and number two, getting that 360-degree photography is not a tremendous lift financially. So I think there's some fear out there that that's going to cost a lot of money to get done, and it can be done for a real competitive price.
So we aren't showing a 10 by 10 in the virtual exhibits that we have in EDS. Can we do a 10 by 10?
I mean, sure, we could. It's
harder. Let me just say it out loud. It's harder to get value in a 10 by 10. Having said that, could it be done? I think that one.
it's possible.
It's definitely possible. It's just a smaller space, and it's harder to get
physically. Yes, it can be done. You don't have as much, benefit from moving throughout the space because it is such a small space. You don't have as many places in the booth to create different experiences. So I would think that most people would want to go at least 10 by 20 because you saw how effective that was. But yeah, I mean, if your client absolutely wants a 10 by 10, for sure. I saw someone else asked if I'm the only one doing this, and no, I'm not. No, I still have a design team, and we're all working on them together. And we also have a great stable of independent designers who we lean on. We've already leaned on to help, keep up with the demand. So
one of the elements of that moving forward, sorry, Katina, one of the elements moving forward with that is we're actively in some cross-training process with our traditional project managers as well. to be a part of this process, not the creative side where they're creating the beautiful renderings and whatnot. That our existing creative team and their contractors will stay focused on, but building in some of the interactives and working in that. So it's a work in progress, to be perfectly honest with you, but we're getting closer and closer to that. So that we'll be able to have a even bigger team working on these every day, because the requests on these are coming in every day. People are calling, asking questions about them, and pitching these every day. The one thing I don't want to overpromise, but I do want to at least mention is, before, as an unbranded entity, we talked a lot about, hey, if you've got a call with your client and you want to have one of our designers on that call, we can be your designer on that call. That all still very, very much exists. So don't forget that if you do have opportunities with clients. I could never encourage you more on the virtual side that having Katina or Kim or Zach or one of our contractors on that call with you, even if they are masked as your designer, it will be invaluable rather than trying to pass a lot of this information on. They're all very well versed in how to walk people through how this functions, set the proper expectations, and also just have a much better ear, I think, than most of us do for listening to what the client's needs are.
All right, I think there's one final question. Is there a particular format for the 3D files?
I'm not sure what that's referring to, if he's asking if they were to send us a 3D file, if we could create a virtual exhibit out of it. I'm assuming that's what the question is. The main program that we use is 3D Studio Max. So if you are sending us a 3D file, 3D Max is great. If it's a DWG, DXF, some of those other ones, we can import it. It takes time then to sort of reassign materials, add the graphics back in, things that don't necessarily cross over very well between another 3D program and ours. But we've worked with a lot of different file types and imported different files, and we can definitely make it work.
All right, those are all the questions. Do you guys have any final comments?
Katina, you got anything final before I close out?
I think we've covered it.
Cool. There's one question here just came in. Can you discuss the proper or preferred order of the design creation process, i.e., all the graphics and textures should be complete and approved prior to rendering? Yeah, I mean, prior to rendering, I think definitely that has to, all the graphics need to be settled, because once you're doing that, it's a very long process. So you don't want to, definitely don't want to have that twice.
Well, and sometimes what I've done is I will put the renderings and the textures in the way I think that they're supposed to look, and I'll do like a traditional rendering that's just a little flat rendering rather than the panoramic one, just to make sure it looks good before I go to through the process of the more extensive large renderings and get those started in the visual side. So yeah, we can sort of do a proof, if you will, to make sure that everything looks right with the graphics and textures. But yeah, that does have to happen preferably before. Otherwise, we have to kind of retrace our steps a lot. If you get down the path and we've already started doing the virtual side, putting in the links and the interactive stuff, and then it's like, oh, I want to change this graphic. We can, it's going to take more design time. And so we would like to have, the graphics and everything final up front as much as possible.
All right. Lastly, just thank you, everybody. It's been what a weird last 3-4 months. So I know it's been hard on our industry. It's been hard on all of us, but what's been great for us as a classic family is that we've got these great connections with you guys as our partners, and have been able to have sort of fun, engaging conversations to kind of see how we can create new revenue. And this is one of them that hopefully we can partner on together to help both our companies out, but also our end clients out, who our end clients are in the same pickle right now. No one really knows what to do when you can't step on a show floor for several months. So I hope you found this helpful. Katina and her team are amazing. Don't feel shy about reaching out to them and asking questions. I'm fairly well versed in this at this point, that if you've got quick questions, I can help answer as well. So don't hesitate to reach out, and any questions post webinar over the next couple days, by all means, shoot us an email and we'll be happy to get back to you. Otherwise, stay safe, stay healthy, and we just appreciate having you guys on board as partners. Thanks. Take